Hey, I'm Rob Gantt with the Goose Creek Gazette and the Berkeley Independent. I'm here today in Summerville at the Summerville Journal-Scene office with my teammate and partner Roger Lee of the Summerville Journal-Scene. This is Football Talk, and we're talking football. Special thanks to our sponsors, Tosha LLC Precious Metal Recycler, Grace Funeral Services, and Hoover the Mover in Monk's Corner. Roger, we get into the second half of the season, and right out of the gate, we've got a doozy of a game. Ford at Berkeley. We won't talk about that one right now. We'll save that one for later, but I'm really excited to talk about that one with you.
Sure.
Well, aside from that game, which is going to be epic, I believe, what else do you have? What do you have going on your side?
Well, Summerville was coming off a big 49-10 win over Ashley Ridge. That was a huge game for them, first region game, so now they're 1-0 in Region 8, 5A. Jonathan Bennett had a great game, 14 of 17 passing for 257 yards. He rushed for, passed for 4 touchdowns, rushed for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. Brody Hopkins had over 100 yards receiving. The Green Wave offense is really dialed in, and their defense.
Yeah, that really surprised a lot of people because Ashley Ridge is a quality football team and had been doing pretty well. And Summerville, given the fact that they had lost an emotional game the week before against Berkeley, to come back and punish Ashley Ridge like that, I don't know. That's a heck of an effort for Summerville. What do you think happened in the week before, leading into the game?
Well, you already said it. Summerville, especially their defense, they gave up 34 points to Berkeley the week before.
Okay.
They came in there with a chip on their shoulder. They were ready to play. They had like 4 sacks. They had trapped a lot of guys in the backfield. Matt Duncan's usually a pretty good passer, but they didn't, they pretty much managed him, kept him from, didn't have anybody open downfield basically, or any much time to throw it. So, I think it was just they took that loss hard and they decided they weren't going to, they were going to show what they were capable of this week.
Well, evidently they were a very angry, focused bunch. So, do you have any more angry, focused people coming up on your list?
Well, let's go ahead and mention Summerville's opponent this week.
Okay.
Which is Cane Bay. They're having homecoming. Cane Bay might not be the best team to have homecoming with, but I'm looking for at least an exciting game for that homecoming crowd. What do you think?
I think so. Cane Bay is a type of team that can kind of control the clock on you and kind of keep moving the chains. They've got an excellent quarterback running their system. They run the option, and so if you don't watch it, they can hold the ball for 8 minutes on you. Cane Bay is coming off. I don't know if it's really a surprise. I don't know. They ended up beating Goose Creek in overtime, 27-24. I think if you asked people how that game was going to go, people would have expected Cane Bay to win by a larger margin. I think it's a testament to the progress that Goose Creek has made, but also from the Cane Bay perspective, it took them a while to kind of get in gear. And Goose Creek had the ball in the first half a lot. It kept the ball away from them. Well, Cane Bay's offense kind of finally got moving in the second half, kept them on the field, wore them down, scored a couple touchdowns in the fourth quarter to tie it up 21-21. In the overtime, they got a game winner from the quarterback, Elijah Bay. He scored 3 times in the game for the Cobras. So, Summerville coming off a big resounding win where everything seemingly went right for them. I do agree with you that Cane Bay could be a tricky opponent this week, especially if Cane Bay can not really help Summerville and just kind of continue to move the chains, keep the clock rolling.
Yeah, if Cane Bay can control the ball, it could get interesting. I mean,
yeah, the key, that's going to have to be the key because I don't know if they have the people to cover all of Summerville's skill people out, like Banks and Hopkins, and I'm sure I'm leaving somebody out, but
yeah.
So Cane Bay is going to have to hang on to the ball, and they've shown in the past that they can do that to people.
All right. Also this week, Pinewood is still looking for their first win. They're coming off a loss to Cardinal Newman. This week they host First Baptist, so it doesn't get much easier, at least not this week for the Panthers.
Yeah, the Panthers' chances of winning are slim and none. Slim left town.
That's Rob Gantt's pick right there.
Yeah, they're going to be. Pinewood Prep is just going to be way over its head in this game. First Baptist is an excellent Skeezer football team, and sometimes that happens. But credit to all the kids that are on the Pinewood Prep football team. They haven't won yet, but they're sticking with it and they're playing hard. And they're still working, coming to practice. So there is something to be said for that.
Yeah,
for sure.
And they have had a rough first half of the season. So you never know. They might start shaping up in this second half.
Well, they won't see anybody. Other than Hammond, they won't see anybody any better than First Baptist.
Right.
So they can get this one behind them. Maybe they can get somebody they can deal with a little bit later down the second half of the season.
That's really all we got going on, except for that big game that everybody's wanting to hear about. So you want to talk about what's going on in Berkeley County first?
Yeah, we'll do that. We'll kind of come over to Berkeley County and we'll talk about Fort Berkeley at the tail end. We'll defer Fort Berkeley conversation to the second half.
Sure.
Okay. All right. Stall travels over to Goose Creek on Friday night. That'll be the homecoming game for the Gators. As we mentioned earlier, they played an exceptional game against Cane Bay, had a chance to win, didn't work out for them. This is a situation where Goose Creek will be rewarded with a win. I would be very shocked if Goose Creek didn't win pretty big. So look for the Gators to have a good victory celebration on homecoming. Cane Bay is at Summerville. We mentioned that. Timberland defense is really just feasting on the competition right now. They travel over to Garrett for a region football game. Timberland has not given up a point in over a month. They've had 3 straight shutouts. They're coming off a 58-0 win over Philip Simmons on Friday, which I don't think that surprises people. This is kind of what you'd expect would happen. They lost their first 2 games, but they kind of gotten into the cage with people their own size, and when they do that, they're tough to handle. A couple names to mention. I know DJ Gadsden, the quarterback for Timberland, he threw a couple of touchdown passes on Friday. Defensively, one name to mention, Terrence Smalls. He helped lead the team in tackles. He had 10. They're playing pretty well right now, and I wouldn't look for them to give up. Honestly, I think it's very possible that they not give up a point in the region slate, unless maybe Oceanside Collegiate scores on them. Branchville travels over to Cross. It'll be the homecoming for Cross. When I'm doing research on this game, I would have expected Cross to have a better chance to win, but I looked at Branchville's record. They're 5-1. They're having a very good season. Cross is kind of like Pinewood Prep, still struggling, still looking for the first win. Another game, Faith Ridge is traveling over to St. John's Christian. Faith Ridge is coming off a loss, and so is St. John's Christian. The Cavaliers went over to Beaufort Academy on Friday night, and we heard the Beaufort Academy offense was really good, and they scored 72 points. I think St. John's Christian came in around 41. This should be a very entertaining game. I think, both teams have enough weapons to score, and so if you're looking for a shootout on Friday night and you don't want to have to deal with the huge crowd at a Fort Berkeley game, Faith Ridge and St. John's Christian will be a good place to go see a game. That'll be at St. John's Christian. It'll probably be 50-49, And the food's good out there. I've had some hamburgers and stuff over there at the St. John's Christian concession stand. Right on point. A couple other games to mention. Hanahan travels over to Academic Magnet. Hanahan got on track on Friday. They beat up on Bishop England 37-7. That was a kind of a big deal for Hanahan because, first of all, Bishop England's a rival. Hanahan was coming off a 29-0 loss to Timberland. Academic Magnet is a team that I believe won its first 2 or 3 games this year, but has since kind of fallen off. I look for the Hawks to win big here. On Friday night, I want to mention one name from Friday night, Gale Ball, the running back for the Hawks. He had over 200 yards rushing. He scored 3 touchdowns, and great night for him for sure. One other game, Northwood is going to play John Paul II in Ridgeland. Northwood is very similar to Pinewood Prep and Cross right now, still looking for their first win. I don't really know a whole lot about John Paul II. I know that Northwood just kind of needs to be able to play a full game and help themselves and not turn the ball over and penalties and that sort of stuff, and maybe they'll have an opportunity to be in the game. All right, well, we have reached the moment of truth, my friend. Fort is traveling over to Berkeley. I guess I'll talk first from the Berkeley perspective. The very first thing is, if you have an opportunity to buy tickets early, either through Berkeley High School's athletic website, or there's some businesses locally in the Moncks Corner area that will be selling some tickets early on Friday, I certainly advise that. I talked to Randy Robinson about what sort of crowd they expect to have Friday, and it's really going to test the limits of that stadium. People are going to be piled up inside there. I know that they've brought in some stands for the Berkeley High School students. They're going to put them in the end zones, either both end zones or one end zone.
That'll be fun.
Yeah, it's going to be a very exciting atmosphere. You know, for one, I mean, they love their football team, and they're having a phenomenal season. I guess just kind of tell me a little bit about Fort, and we'll come back to about Berkeley.
You know, Fort, the coaches out there started the year warning everybody, you know, look, we don't want our quarterback, DeAndre Saab, to be the carry-on joiner. We don't need him to be the carry-on joiner. But halfway through the season, the guy's putting up some the carry-on-esque numbers.
Yeah.
He's already passed for just under 800 yards, rushed for 600 yards. So that's a lot of offense from one guy. And he's really filling those shoes nicely. He isn't the carry-on. You know, you don't want to make that comparison, but he's having a really good year. He's got several receivers he can throw to on the defensive side of the ball. Senior linebacker Devon Gilmore is kind of leading the way. He's got 66 tackles in the first 5 games. I think that's 7 for a loss and a sack. Him and linebacker Darrell Ware are kind of a tandem team. It's like you can't go to one side or the other. They like to funnel all their action to the linebackers, and both those guys are just top-notch, you know, defensive talent. I'm sure we'll see those guys both playing in college sometime. So that's kind of the anchors of those teams, and then they've just got a great supporting cast on offense and defense. So they're really starting to look kind of like the Fort Dorchester team we've been used to the last few years, I think, the last couple of weeks.
Well, I have to ask you, you have seen Berkeley, you've obviously seen Fort. You got to make a pick. You got to have some courage. You got to tell the people who's going to win the game, Raj.
Well, before I pick, let me tell you what I know about Berkeley. They are a very good football team, kind of like the Fort Dorchester team we've been used to the last few years, I think, the last couple of weeks.
Well, I have to ask you, you have seen Berkeley, you've obviously seen Fort. You got to make a pick. You got to have some courage. You got to tell the people who's going to win the game, Raj.
Well, before I pick, let me tell you what I know about Berkeley. They are a very good football team. You know, I got to watch them play Summerville, and I was impressed. Same thing with them. They've got a great senior leader at quarterback. They've got some guys who are just fast. That's what's going to make this game so interesting, is both teams have that great speed, that top-notch drive, if you would. So, you know, Berkeley has a good squad, but I think Fort is going to take it in a tight game. I just think they've got such, you know, they've got that whole reputation coming in.
To beat a man, you got to beat the man.
Yeah. I mean, I would not be shocked if Berkeley pulled out an upset, but I would say it would definitely be an upset if the Stags take that game, even though it is at home, which will make a difference.
Well, one stat to throw out there, Fort Dorchester has not lost to a local team since 2014. And they've been the Lowcountry champion for at least that long. Berkeley High School, I believe, can challenge them because, you know, you have a veteran quarterback, Eric Tuttle. He's got a great supporting cast. DJ Chisholm is a speedster. You've got Devon Pesnell, who is a one-on-one matchup nightmare down the field for anybody to have to cover. Keyshawn Wicks is a running back who I don't think people realize how good he is. On Friday night, he had 180 yards rushing. I believe the offensive line, you've got a guard and a tackle, David Martin and Cam McCray. They're playing about as well as they can right now. They're kind of getting it dialed in. The offensive line for Berkeley is moving people around a little bit and giving these guys room to run. Roger, I'm going with the Stags.
All right.
I'm going with the Stags. The thing here that crosses my mind though is you said it earlier. You know, to be the man, you got to beat the man. In Berkeley's case, will they be able to finish? I'm telling you, I think they're going to be able to finish because of the collection of skilled people in the fourth quarter. They're going to make the plays they need to win the football game. But mentally, if you have to make a case for Fort to win, I think can Berkeley seal the deal? It's hard to do when you know you've got the champ on the ropes. It's hard to put him through the ropes because doubt stuff starts to creep in, and maybe you start getting a little out of focus. You think, man, I got a chance to knock the champ out.
Can overthink it. So
it happens a lot. Anytime you have a really good team on the ropes, it's not a shocker when the good team somehow figures out a way to win. I think you could. There are countless examples of that out there where a team was had a chance to beat another really just great team and upset them, and they weren't able to finish just because they got too tall a task at the end of the game. But I just rambled for like 2 minutes. The fact is, Berkeley High School is going to win the game because of Eric Tuttle, DJ Chisholm, Keyshawn Wicks, and Dervon Pesnell. That cast is going to win the football game. I'm going to go Berkeley to win somewhere in the neighborhood of 35-27, 35-30, something like that.
Okay.
Well, I mean, anything else to add that maybe we forgot?
One thing I did forget, and I think maybe after last week they might want to be forgot a little bit. Didn't mention that Ashley Ridge is hosting James Island. I think that they will kind of have a week similar to what Summerville had last week, and they will focus on how Summerville beat them this week and get ready. And it's probably not going to be a fun night for James Island.
It's definitely not going to be a fun night for James Island. I've seen those two teams play, both of them. I saw James Island on Friday against Stratford. Stratford beat them. Stratford's off this week, by the way. Stratford beat them pretty handily, thanks to quarterback Travis Lott. He had 3 touchdown passes, 2 to Demarius Anderson, 1 to Blake Mars, and he also ran one in. That's Stratford. Had to throw that in there. Ashley Ridge is going to roll over James Island for sure. Well, Rod, this has been another edition of Football Talk. Special thanks to our sponsors, Tosha LLC, Precious Metal Recycler, Grace Funeral Services LLC, and Hoover the Mover in Monk's Corner. Guys, if you're going to the Fort Berkeley game, get those tickets early. That's my advice to you.